today the topic that I wish to speak on is called Finding the Treasures Within. And it does have a distinct connection with the primary theme of the convention. And I will unfold that as we work through the talk. The treasures within. And the first thought I want to spring forth from is to observe that in a world where individualism is so strongly emphasized, especially in certain countries, the all holy individual at the expense of community, often it would seem, how can the fabric of life be strengthened and nurtured by the healing balm of compassion? And I think that's really being brought to light these days. Just to be clear, I'm not advocating one or the other. To my mind, the optimum combination is where the strengths of individuality and of community are present together, well developed, healthy, and supporting each other. I think that really then works as a vibrant webwork of humanity on this planet. So I don't know where that would place me on the political spectrum. Probably a broad placement as well. Not right, not left, just in front. Okay, thanks. And no, I didn't invent that. There are many, many treasures to be found within our awareness and the field of our consciousness. And there are those which are apparent, others which are emerging, or perhaps hiding well and truly out of sight. And I want to spend time revealing those, or at least referring to them. This is very much about the third object of the society, where it refers to the powers latent in the human being, and this is exactly the kind of thing I wish to talk about. Only sometimes I've noticed when people talk about the powers latent in humanity, ourselves, we tend, I've noticed in groups, to think only of psychic powers and things like that. But no, it is very, very much more than that. It is the powers of compassion. It is about the powers of divine love, which is bright within our being, maybe out of sight at times, you know, as we heard last night in that amazing talk with our Buddhist teacher person there. And but we do have at the very core of our being many rich and wonderful powers which echo and reveal and express are the latent powers of the divine life from which we were birthed in times way, way past. So yes, this is the reference point to the objects of the society. Another observation I want to make is that we often talk about within, and indeed it's in my title, the treasures within. Well, I have news for you. The within is also very firmly outside of ourselves. And who has not had the experience of supposedly going within, but experiencing the field of your awareness, going out, as it were, to embrace the universe? I often have this. And that's a delightful paradox as well. I think Theosophy is a bit like the Victorian story written by Lewis Carroll about Alice in Wonderland, where I think it was the Queen of Hearts or somebody or maybe the Cheshire Cat, it doesn't matter who said it, it was appropriately paradoxical, and she replied haughtily, "Oh, I believe in the six impossible, it's possible things before breakfast," and that was like a Zen koan. It left Alice thinking, all right, if you say so. Six impossible things, and a Theosophical Society is where we will regularly conceive of six paradoxical and apparently impossible things before lunchtime. Especially in our conventions. But isn't this what we come for? Isn't it just for ourselves to experience the stretching of our minds in community with each other, enjoying the gems of each other as well as ourselves? Now, so a few of these gems, these treasures within, are the gems of wisdom and equanimity that can be distilled from a hard-won experience. And in the course of the work that I did do, I'm not actually a practicing EFT, that's the emotional freedom techniques, but I do use it on myself often to great way to calm ourselves. But one of the things I've noticed amongst other people who but come for help like this, you know, when they come to the Theosophical Society or they go to a practitioner in this art or that art, is often I've noticed they've had an incredibly challenging childhood and adulthood. And a lot of those people have come to think of themselves as beaten up and to think, I'm no good, you know, and I failed at this and I failed at that. And the discovery that we are to help them to make is that I survived the light workers' education. Not everybody does. I mean, this is literally a survival thing. And there are many people who have had a highly dysfunctional childhood and upbringing, and they may have emerged from it and may not. And bless the ones who haven't. Maybe another round of lifetime, or maybe later in this life. But I just wanted to make that observation that those who come through that furnace of a dysfunctional beginning to their lives may not have realized that they were distilling gems like diamonds in the colossal pressures and temperatures of their earlier life. I think we all know that diamonds are formed deep within the earth in huge temperatures and colossal pressures. But out of that, the diamond soul we talk about, don't we? For good reason. It sparkles with the divine light. And we all have within us the diamond soul being formed under the pressures of our lives. And so that is one of the great treasures we can discover within each other, as well as ourselves, and even help other people around us to discover within themselves. And that's a fantastic thing. That's why I call it the light workers' education. When people have discovered these strengths within themselves, they may not be diamonds, they might be rubies. There are people who discover brilliant, beautiful red jewels. Now I am speaking, this is metaphorical, but it is deeply metaphorical, and it is about the nature of the energies which are distilled within ourselves under deep pressure. That these are some of the treasures within that I'm talking about in this talk. There are others, of course, and the various gifts of the Spirit, which again the third object of the Society is referring to. The gifts of the Spirit are many, and they unfold because the light of Spirit, that originating divine consciousness from which we have streamed forth in our monadic cores, and around which build the bodies, the bodies of our spiritual nature, especially the causal body. Those who have a Christian background might recall that at one or two places it refers to the treasures stored up in heaven. And in Theosophy, I think it's good. It's good to understand that it'd probably be a reference to the energies and the distilled wisdom of each lifetime that we've lived. It might be hundreds, if not thousands, of lifetimes that we have lived. And each of those in the after-death process is like a refining process. It's where the multitudinous experiences of the life are distilled into those deeper essences, deeper wisdoms, which I believe form the core of conscience, the different things which we discover within ourselves in another future life. A lot of those things about conscience are, I think, partly the memory of the soul and the permanent atoms as well, which have remembered the essences of that didn't work, that resulted in pain. And this is about the school of karma on this planet. Karma is not only about being struck down by a lightning bolt, you know, it also has wonderful offerings which are in direct measure and concordance with the nature of your choices. I'm choosing every one of these words very carefully. Karma is the process of the school of life on earth. It is a deep and amazing school. And the way it works is that if you habitually make poor choices, which are based on not love and maybe hateful images of other people, and you radiate that out on everybody around you, it will produce a karma, part of which occurs in this lifetime, part of which occurs in the afterlife state, and part of which ripens, as we heard last night. ripens in future lives. And you might think, oh, this is terrible. What did I do to deserve this? No, well, possibly you did do things to deserve it, but hey, there's another reason. A difficult life does not necessarily mean you were a nasty person in the past. And this is really important to remember. If you have a friend or a relative or a person who is gravely ill, sometimes those people have learned, oh, maybe this is a product of karma. It is not necessarily. And this is a deep, benign insight, because you learn from certain spiritual books that a difficult life may not be the product of a difficult karma. It might in fact because the soul chose a difficult life to help those around them to learn compassion. Now, is that not itself a deeply compassionate thing? So do withhold bending over the person, the cripple in the chair, and saying smilingly, oh, you must have been very bad in a past life, or you know, I've heard of it happening. You know, people, and if you don't do it to somebody, they might do it to themselves. So just be careful in our theosophical talks to add the writer that they may have actually chosen to live a life of this, which is a deeply noble thing to do, is it not? Right. Gifts of the Spirit. Well, the distillations of the karma of good life, a holy life or a kind life, one which has been informed by love, you know, predominantly. You've wanted to be of service in a life. It likewise bears gifts of the Spirit, which duly come through the operation of karma in this lifetime, after death, in future lifetimes, in direct measure to the energies you have expressed in the relationships. Sometimes I think that karma is stored in our relationships. It's very interesting, is it not? That karma is itself, in one aspect of it anyway, is stored in the energies and nature of our relationships. So think about that. But do we just have to dig for these things to find them within ourselves? Are they just buried within? Well, no, I think that when you meet a kind person of beautiful character, that is directly expressing who they have become. And Blavatsky too, I don't remember exactly where it was written, but that as we approach the stage of a dedicated life, and on towards maybe making the choice to become a probationer and eventually a disciple and initiate, as we begin to approach the earlier stages of these things, the doors of karma open for us to move through into those states and stages. And that karma in itself is built upon your works and the nature of the treasure in heaven that you've built into your causal body and your permanent atoms. I'd like to talk about empathy, which is very closely related to, but it's not the same thing as compassion. Would anybody here like to put a hand up and venture an opinion of what the difference is between empathy and compassion? And I'm not saying there's any single right answer, but I just want to hear some different voices in the room. Empathy, compassion. Yes?
Empathy is when you put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Empathy is the ability or the experience of placing yourself in other people's shoes, and compassion probably includes that, but also is when you put it into action. It's actually caring enough to put it in action. Thank you. Anybody else like to venture?
If we've already experienced something similar, it's more easy to empathise. To me, compassion is when you're caring and supportive, even if you don't understand what the person's experiencing, and you may not even really put the same value on it, but you can still be compassionate.
Yes. Is there perhaps any one other person who'd Colonel?
In the 70s, late 70s, Lifeline advocated trying actually to empathise.
Indeed too, and it's amazing and very heartwarming that there are many organisations like Lifeline and others which teach the skills of practical empathy and expression, you know, that's right, and help people through really tough things. Between you all, I entirely agree. You know, I think that compassion is grounded in empathy, And it is indeed enhanced by having experienced that before yourself. And in science we know that there are mirror neurons in the brain, but a particular region of the brain which responds and becomes active when we observe another person in a particular state or behaving in a certain way, and we feel the same sort of way ourselves, and we experience the same feeling. And the sorts of, theosophically we know that there will be the astral body and the mental body corresponding states of energy which relate to the brain states. Of course, our consciousness system is a huge and amazing system which involves the movement of energies and transmission of information up and down, as it were, between the different parts in a very intimate symphony, a symphony of light. How's that? Yeah. Right. Moving on then. These, do they not express connections between each other? A relationship is a connection, and empathetic response is an expression, an actual radiating of energy and action within that line or that connection between us and another person. And if you look at it, the whole of society is an amazing network. I've seen diagrams of the relationships between people on different online groups like Facebook, and there's these huge things that have dots, you know, like a pink dot and a blue dot, and these represent different people, and the lines between them represent maybe those who are friends on Facebook, whatever it is, which themselves reflect particular relationships between those two people. And this is society, it's a whole web work around the planet. This is the global body of light. This is the energetic milieu and structure, like a global brain, in which I believe a global consciousness is being birthed, despite all the troubles, the conflict and the problems going around. These are the birth pangs of a global consciousness. And we've got a way to go. But groups like ours, organisations like ours, help to infuse light into that global body, help to heal energetically the relationships between people, help to dissolve and transform the vast amounts of psychic gunge which lie around the planet, which people have poured out for thousands of years. This is very much a work of the Theosophical and kindred organisations, to heal the planet as well as ourselves. So these are the connections, but what does it mean to deepen a connection, which is this little phrase, the second phrase of our theme? What is it to deepen a connection? Well, obviously we have the everyday connections of language and society and Facebook, for better or for worse, heaven help us, Twitter, heaven help us, for better or worse. They are not all bad, these, I mean, for heaven's sake. On Facebook alone, I know of many global, international meditations being hosted each year, by the dozen each year. So look out those groups and see what they're doing. A relationship here, I think that the deepening of a connection is to discover our mutual presence to each other. What does that mean? Maybe energetically. I think we heard yesterday or the day before something about jewels, discovering each other within ourselves. As you know people, you build, of course, a mental image of them, and this occurs in your brain, but it also, of course, occurs in our whole energy system, of our consciousness. So we have, as it were, like a model of our friends and relations within ourselves. But as we discover the higher aspect of each other, the deeper aspect of each other, and form deep and caring relationships, it is deepening our understanding of each other. And I put it to you that this is deepening the connection between us. That those little hypothetical lines of energetic light going between ourselves around a boardroom table, or a dinner table, or whatever it is, in a schoolroom, a teaching room, a healing circle, a parliament. I'm just trying to think of big groups that do different things. A Congress in the United States, they're big groups, aren't they? They're groups composed of relationships between the people there, and of course they compartmentalise themselves into different broad groups. So I'm just unfolding for you the idea that relationships and connections can be deepened. But it's coming from the other side as well, a bit like stalactites and stalagmites. Does anybody know how you can remember those? All right, the one that I remember is that's a bit like ants in the pants. When the mites go up, the tights come down. We laugh. Now, do you know that the moment of getting a joke is very like the moment of enlightenment? And the brain waves rise to a very high level of oscillation. It's called the gamma range or band. It's around about 40 hertz. It's much higher than the usual, about 12 or 15. So be comforted that the moment of laughter, which is very strong, I think a lot of enlightenment just happened then too. I think that the twinkle of fun in the eye is a distinctly spiritual twinkle. You know, that's a very nice thing. Remember that. So we can discover each other within ourselves. And of course that works the other way. Other people who know us also are discovering us within them. And there's a wonderful phrase that expresses that, which is supposed to come from the Mayan culture. I'm trying to find where I've got it here. But anyway, it goes, in lakesh alakin. Hands up, anybody who's heard of that? In lakesh alakin. Forgive my pronunciation. Yeah, that's good. It means something like, I am another you, and you are another me. Like the main version of namaste, which is I salute the divine or the divinity within you. In lakesh alakin. So all these things, as we deepen our understanding of each other and also ourselves, our deepening of ourselves and discovering treasures within, which have to do with awakening the ability to experience compassion. What I want to spend the rest of the time doing is encouraging a bit of a discussion here. What we can do to help to encourage the discovery of the treasures within, in our own lives and in each other. They can be very homely things, like talk to your neighbour across the fence. And it's a bit of a weird thing that the bigger a metropolis is, it seems that the less likely they are to talk to each other. You know, we steadfastly walk down the street looking ahead, but dare not look at each other, young women, well, men, anybody will not look at anybody else and make eye contact. It's just there's something really scary about it. So let's brainstorm from ourselves in the room ideas for what we can do, high or low, deep or low, or big or small, to help to encourage the discovery and the realization of the treasures within us and each other. Yes, hello, Simon.
Okay, in terms of our work in the society,
right, good.
I think we need to have more of these type of events at lodge level, regional level, national level. Now, I know we're doing a lot of work and, you know,
truly
coordinate that in a better way, but I feel we need to think about doing more of that. Because we're all here, it's great. I mean, you know, the International Presidency, you're so lucky to be here together, and it's great to see everyone because we haven't seen each other for a whole year. You know, it's fantastic to do that. So, for me, I feel we need to try and orchestrate in a more organised and collaborative way to have more of this, whether at a large scale, small scale, medium scale, whatever it is. Let's keep getting together on a more regular basis.
Thank you. I think that's a great one. Thanks, Simon. Good. Okay, anybody else? Susan.
To follow on from your comment, I once set homework for a student who needed to develop confidence. She had to smile at least 6 strangers as she was out in the street.
Did that work, and how long did it take?
It worked. It was lovely. She became more aware of people. She became aware that these people smiled back.
They're scary things, yeah. Oh, that's so wonderful. Yeah. I bet you've done many a similar thing too, Susan. Thanks. Right, another one? Kirsty.
To embrace, understand and value diversity.
to embrace, value, and understand diversity in whatever form. Yeah, thank you. I'm just bringing it back. Good. Next, please. Yeah, Ben.
Following on from the idea of smiling, we've been going for little walks in the morning, and I've just been trying to acknowledge every person as they pass. I have been smiling, but nobody's looking. But people acknowledge back, and you see immediately they go from sucking their head to, oh, good morning. And, yeah, I think that.
Susan can set you some more homework if you want.
Hello, Gillian. Yeah.
If you go down the street smiling, count the smiles you get back, you always get at least 6.
At least what?
At least 6.
6, yeah, right. I love that. Thank you. Count them. Marshall?
Well, I belong to a Pentecostal church, and I thought, well, the obvious way to communicate is to embrace. But after several complaints to the pastor, I backed off a bit.
The thing called permission. Permission, whether implied or not, yeah. I like that. It's a nice impulse, basically. Yes, at the back there, Julian.
For me, on a personal level, I think that when you're talking to someone, to deepen the connection, you must listen with all your presence and be completely present for what that person is saying, and not trying to listen so that you can reply, but listen with patience and reflect back to them what they're telling you, rather than telling your own story. So listen with complete presence when you're speaking to someone, instead of looking around or watching or checking your phone. That really, to me, is a sign that someone really cares about you as a person.
Thank you. That's very nicely expressed. Yes.
What was that you said again?
Remember that, Marshall?
I've forgotten who brought it up first. About 3 people, I think you were first, Madeline.
I was going to say, and maybe the priority to comfort a distressed child.
Oh.
Because it's how we treat our children as to how we can heal the world.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Penelope. Getting it right.
Just to further what was just being said, and Tim mentioned using your ears, listening to people, listening properly, but also everybody has a story, and there's a lot of loneliness, a great deal of loneliness, and those people need to be listened to as well. People who don't have family or don't go to groups. If you have any way of connecting with them, listening to them, and bringing out their gems as well.
Thank you, Penelope. And who's been noticing the words of compassion coming out in the room? I think it was you next, Pamela.
I just thought of a story, just to know when you need to help and be compassionate. I remember, I've got 2 actually. Once I remember asking a very elderly lady if I could help her with her bags, and I thought I was being helpful. Really. I could carry my bags, so you've got to watch for that too. And when I was in Wellington railway station many years ago, and there was a little child about 2 crying their eyes out, and all the commuters were just walking past. And I thought, this child's on the subway, would walk up on the road, do anything. And so I took the little child and found the manager's office. And what had happened was the family had got on a train, and someone else thought they had the child. And I didn't actually, he could hardly speak, he was so distraught, very little. I didn't find out what had happened, but I knew they would look after him. And somebody must have come back on the next train.
Go on, Kim.
If anyone's interested, just if they want to, they could make an agreement with the powers that be to go and heal COVID when they go to sleep.
With what? Sorry, I missed your last
To go and heal the people that have COVID when they're asleep. So when they're asleep, they could make an agreement to go and heal the world condition of the people themselves and their relationships with animals. Things like that, with some sort of empathy and real healing. All you have to do is make an agreement and be part of a group that goes and does it.
Okay, yes. And indeed, there is a little book in the Theosophical collection which is called Invisible Helpers by Leadbeater, and describes amazing and very heartwarming work which is able to be done on the inner planes, or indeed at the interface between the inner planes and the physical world. Right, now who's next?
When you're awake and you're walking around town, you can sometimes tell someone who's distressed or needs a bit of encouragement.
Right.
So you can just send a thought of encouragement, and if it's not a thought that they require, you can just imagine them surrounded by white light. And I sometimes do this on the plane with a mother who's trying to calm the baby.
Right.
It can be done any way you are.
I know about that one. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And Julia now.
I don't know whether it was in the Masters and the Path, but it was described in one of the Theosophical books that the TS used to do work on the inner planes.
Exactly.
There was a group
that
used to do it. What I wanted to say is a way of deepening is to express appreciation for very small things. It might be the checkout girl at the supermarket who arranges somebody to go and do something to get you boxes, or runs out and says, look, you didn't take your change, and then to go back and say, thank you for that little thing you did for me yesterday, even to appreciate qualities in a person and say, I really appreciate the fact that you stay calm, you stood very calmly through that argument. Your presence I found very helpful. Just small appreciations.
Well, thank you. Many, many beautiful things arise in this room.
I just wanted to say, in the light of compassion, I feel like spontaneous acts of goodness or kindness without expectation, and the way that you feel, if it touches your heart and warms your heart in the giving, you know you're coming from the right place and not from your ego. And then you forget what you've done. You just, if it is truly coming from a giving of love and kindness, compassion. I remember just recently my neighbours who I loved dearly across the road are leaving, and he said to me, and they've been there 5 years, if I'm lucky, he said, I'll always remember you came over and brought a cake to welcome us when we moved in. And I went, what? What? I did not remember any of that. But it meant, obviously, it was a feedback that he did 5.5 years later.
You're saying about the neurons in the brain aligning with somebody else and that sort of thing. So discovering latent powers, Ismail know this trick from philosophy school, where even if it's your workmate or whoever that you come in contact with, when you start talking with them, pretend you've never met them before, and you'll give them 20 questions. You'll grill them the 20 questions, and you'll discover things about them that there's a very superficial way of being, of relating with people, but you can deepen it that way by pretending that they're a stranger, even though you've known them for years or whatever. To say on a certain days. Awesome. And you will find some things in yourselves because you've never known that about that person.
Yeah, right. There's always a discovery, isn't there? Thanks, Brett. And now, John, you're the last.
Start with yourself. Be kind and compassionate to yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror in the morning.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And start remembering who you really are. Smile at yourself. And walk around with get a plastic straw, put it across your mouth, walk around with it. You will automatically smile. You cannot not smile with a straw stuck in your mouth. Have a go at it at home.
Everybody in the house will smile back at you.
Yes, exactly.
Well, they'll guard you away.
Well, thank you all. This is Wind Up Time, and thank you all for deepening the connection between us and blazing out all the fantastic energies which denote a group and a process like this. inevitably stream forth into the community to help to enhance the global consciousness. Thank you, I've finished.